Hi, thanks so much for being here with us. You're learning a lot right now, and our presentation portion is really, I mean, it's following up with all of these great practices and the why of our change. So grading for equity practices that support a hopeful mindset is really what we're going for here. With Kathy and Weston's examples about the driving and the maps, I was just thinking about my daughter who's learning to drive right now. She passed driver's ed. She's not old enough yet to take the test and get her license. But right now she knows what she's working on. She knows she needs to work on parallel parking. She is great at maintaining an appropriate speed. She's great at stops. And so when we think about real life and we think about when we're competent at something, it's really important that we know what content we still need to learn and what skills we still need to practice. And that's really what we're going for here with this growth mindset. As a parent, I am hopeful that my daughter will be a better driver because she knows what it is that she needs to learn and what she needs to practice. We know mistakes are part of the learning process. It is not easy being a parent in the car as a passenger when my daughter is learning to drive. It could be pretty intimidating. And she knows that these mistakes are so important. So as teachers, these practices that we're changing, we're really talking about students being able to have opportunity for reassessment. We're saying that where they were earlier in the learning journey, we're taking their more recent scores that will really reflect that accurate content mastery and mastery of skills. We're thinking that with these practices that we're really cultivating expert learners. We do this because we're asking kids to goal set. We're asking them to think about what resources are available to them and to lean into challenges and lean into supports when they're needed. And of course, reflecting. This keeps students feeling more hopeful and it keeps them staying engaged and actually re-engaging after some earlier failures.
And that is the part that's important for us to help you realize for your student, because if you've stayed with us this far, I'm sure you're thinking right now, what about my student, our experience, our family? And what we want to let you know is that everything you've been listening to, from the kind of scary stories we heard earlier from Aaron and Drew about points and teachers that made kids feel nervous, and Whitney's story about losing points, all those different situations. What we are here to leave you with is a message that you can feel hopeful, and that a whole part, all of us, as we've been talking, you can see the effort our teachers are putting into this, our whole administration. Emily Mills is one of our instructional coaches here. I am Renee DeBach. I teach 8th grade social studies, U.S. history. We're all working together to make sure that your child can feel comfortable, confident, and that when we think about what this is that we're talking about, when we change the idea of what grading is, it is encouraging. As Kathy said, we reduce anxiety. It's not like you don't know anymore. You understand what's in the map. It's flexible, which is important. This is not concrete. It's not built in stone. Grades are seen as feedback. They support the learning process. They're a tool we use. They're not a way that we label a student forever. We can be flexible. We can use that grade as feedback. Then students can use it strategically. They can learn from their mistakes and try new things. Like Emily said about her daughter learning how to drive. Hardly ever does one jump in the car and it's perfect. And anyone who's ever taught any child to drive knows that very well. It's a lot, and it takes time and it takes practice. What we tell our students is, if you think about it like a video game, hardly ever do you jump in there and you're perfect right off the bat. It takes time, it takes practice. You lose some lives, you lose some tools, you pick the wrong way. You learn from that what to do differently next time. So it's strategic. It's a partnership for us. That's what's different also from the stories we heard earlier. This is students and teacher working together toward a common goal, which is your student successful learning, not the gathering of points learning. And it's hopeful because with this, students recognize their ability, their strengths over time. That practice allows them to have progress. Progress can lead us to success. What it's not And especially because we heard a couple times about history and social studies teachers, I'm going to say it for me and for all of us here, though, it's not a punishment. Grading should not feel like a punishment. It should not intimidate students. People should not feel shut down in a classroom. The classroom should be a joyful place where we're learning, we're working with each other, we're trying out new things, and we feel good. It shouldn't feel like it's something out of your control. It shouldn't feel like it's sorting students into those labels. I'm a D student. I'm an A student. I'm not good at this. It's not like that, but it's also not an easy way out. Achievement is built with practice and with time. We're not putting zeros in the grade book, but that doesn't mean that we're not having some expectations and structures for how we go about measuring learning.
That's such a good point, Renee, because right now I think there is a misconception that somehow deadlines have been removed from our students' experiences because of increasing these reassessment opportunities. So I just want to clear up that the reality is that we have more structures in place, as Whitney was talking about with habits of learning. The structures are there, the deadlines are there. We still have end of trimesters. There are real world deadlines that we can't soften, but in our feedback loop. So really talking about how students have another opportunity is giving them an opportunity for course correction. And so that goal setting, that course correcting, that reflecting, those all require deadlines. So the feedback loop results in learning and not just completion. And this is really important. We've talked about this before. Procrastination doesn't get you anywhere with this new system. It really is an emphasis on learning and learning from those mistakes. And you know, what's great is that if kids miss a deadline, we have a plan. If kids don't miss a deadline and they meet that deadline, that's great. We have a plan for what we're going to do with their learning too.
And I think it's so important to say, Emily, that idea about procrastination, that for those who worry that a student might procrastinate and they're going to try to just get something done at the last minute, this kind of learning isn't about cramming and it's not about memorization. It's more about creation. And when your student is showing their understanding and their knowledge by creating something that they can share and explain to others, that's not the same as, like I said, just thinking you're going to memorize something. It's a whole different way to do it. And like Emily said, there's all those steps along the way, real-time course corrections that keep students engaged with what we're doing, because it's not a one and done. It's not a, you're a winner or you're a loser. It's not like that. It's about going through a process together. And when we think about all of that, the way this works and how is this going to grow hope for you and your student, it's with thorough communication before, during, and after the learning process. As we heard before, lift the veil. There aren't surprises. We know how, what's expected, when, what the tool of measurement is. Here's the big one to me that's important to me that I want to make sure we share. As students celebrate successes, this helps us grow that hope. When we can appreciate the work involved in something, when they can recognize their own growing skills and the skills of others, when we can share out those results together, when the results are not just between the teacher and the student, but they're shared with peers and families, then the mystery of how you got the grade is solved, the why, and we get to learn, know more about each other, find out from somebody if they did something and you appreciated what that is. It builds for us a feeling of collaboration, cooperation, communication. And that is, to me, far more valuable in some ways than just getting that point on a worksheet. This is for life. What we do is not just for grades in the classroom, it's for life. So this increase in confidence helps us to have our students feel better about what they're doing, coming to classroom, working together, and it just helps us. That rising tide can lift all boats, and it leads us to that collective success.
So we'll bring in the closer now.
For sure.
Thank you so much.